Despite not wanting to lose her loyal sheriff, Mayor Johns reads Holston the official farewell. Holston, now wearing the environmental suit, makes his way up the flight of stairs leading to the outside, while everyone in the silo watches through the displays, with Juliet in particular observing attentively. Once outside, Holston sees a magnificent landscape, with beautiful trees and birds flying in the blue sky, nothing like what's shown on the displays in the silo. Wanting to give the inhabitants a better view of what he's seeing, he walks back to the camera and starts cleaning it. Unfortunately, much like everyone else who ventured outside, Holston starts stumbling and eventually falls down. However, he does something unusual. He takes off his helmet before crawling over to Allison's body and lying down next to it, leaving the couple's corpses right next to each other. Later that evening, Juliet visits a workshop owned by her trusted friend, Martha Walker, who senses that something is troubling her. She asks Juliet if her distress has something to do with Holston's death, leading Juliet to claim that Holston has lied to her. Wanting to give Martha the full picture, Juliet starts revealing the events of the past few months that led to this moment. 3 months earlier, Juliet and George are in a secret relationship, known only to a few close friends. One night, George reveals that he has something important to tell her, but he needs to make sure no one overhears them, and so they decide to wait until they meet at her apartment after she leaves work. Later that night, when Juliet arrives home, she expects to find George waiting for her, but he isn't there. While looking around, she discovers a small bag. She empties it to find a note and a relic that she and George had found. The next day, one of Juliet's colleagues gives her the shocking news that George's body was found dead and that the authorities believe he committed suicide. Knowing George too well, Juliet refuses to believe that his death was a suicide. She suspects that it was actually a murder and heads to the deputy of the floor, Hank, to voice her concerns. Deputy Hank delivers this news to Sheriff Holston, who immediately decides to meet with Juliet to see what proof she has to support her claim. At first, Juliet tries to downplay her relationship with George, saying that she only knew him casually, as everyone knows everyone in the lower parts of the silo. However, for some reason, Holston seems to know that she and George had a romantic relationship, and so he assures her that he won't tell anyone, but she has to be honest with him. This leads Juliet to confirm that she and George were indeed a couple. Juliet then leads Holston to her apartment, where she discloses that George had left something for her before his death. When presented with the note and the relic, Holston notices that the bottom half of the note appears to have been torn off. When asked if she knows where the rest of the note is, Juliet tells him that she found it that way. Accepting this, Holston examines the note, which reads, "Remember where you last saw this." Beginning to trust Holston, Juliet leads him to a tunnel that George discovered while studying the silo's blueprint. They then descend a staircase that leads them to a vast, empty pit at the bottom of the silo. In the center of this pit, they see a massive structure that looks somewhat like a gigantic spider. When Holston inquires about the structure, Juliet explains that she believes it's the remains of the machine that dug the silo. She then guides Holston to a small shed that George built, where she shows him several boxes filled with relics. It is here that she and George found the relic he had left her. As Juliet shows Holston the relics she and George had discovered, she notices a wire lying on the floor. Curious, she follows the wire, which leads her to a hidden bag. Upon opening the bag, she discovers a hard drive and a printed copy of an article that Holston's wife, Allison, had published. Holston examines the article and sees Allison's handwriting on its back from when she was trying to figure out the password to the hard drive. When Holston reveals that this is Allison's handwriting, Juliet expresses her surprise that Allison knew George. This revelation prompts Holston to share that he has talked to George once while investigating why his wife decided to go outside. Being as perceptive as she is, Juliet deduces that Holston must have known about her relationship with George because he had seen George wearing the same unique, eye-catching wristwatch she is currently wearing. All of this leads her to confront him, accusing him of only being interested in George's death to find out if there is a connection between it and Allison's decision to go out to clean 2 years prior. During their heated exchange, she tells him that if he had listened to Allison, she might not have gone out to die. Moved by this, Holston agrees to help her uncover the truth about what happened to George. He promises to investigate the matter further on his own, and that if she discovers anything new, he will send her a signal. In the present day, Juliet tells Martha that Holston has lied, as he didn't send her a signal like he said he would. However, Juliet admits that she wasn't entirely honest either, as she had withheld some information from him too. She then reaches into her pocket and retrieves the bottom half of the note George had left her, which cryptically reads, "I found what I was looking for." Later that evening, Mayor Johns asks Marnes if he has any idea who Holston would have wanted as his successor. Marnes replies by saying that he doesn't think they should follow Holston's wishes, as he seemed to have lost his sanity in his final days. When Johns asks for clarification, Marnes reveals a note that Holston left him. In the note, Holston states that he wants Juliet to be his successor, and even if she refuses, he still wants his badge to be sent to her. Upon hearing this, Mayor Johns expresses her desires to meet Juliet as soon as possible. That same evening, Juliet reminisces about a night when George revealed to her that he believed there was a door at the very bottom of the pit, which he had discovered in an old drawing. This revelation frightened Juliet, as there was water at the bottom of the pit, and she didn't want George to drown. Believing that George's note might indicate he had found the door, Juliet decides to descend into the bottom of the pit herself. She grabs the rope, secures one end of it to the top of the pit, and throws the other end down. After putting on a headlamp, she starts climbing down the rope. However, as she nears the water's surface, her headlamp slips off and plunges into the water, leaving her suspended in darkness above it.